A $25 plane ticket. That was the idea. Not a tech platform, not a revolutionary product. Just the cheapest seat in the sky. For a while, it built one of the most profitable airlines in America. And then, Spirit Airlines found itself one phone call away from disappearing forever. The government is literally debating whether to spend $500 million of your tax dollars to keep them alive. The same airline that charged you $45 for a carry-on bag can't afford to keep the lights on. So how does the most ruthlessly efficient airline in America end up begging Washington to survive? That's what we're here to find out. Spirit didn't start in a Silicon Valley garage or a Manhattan boardroom. It started in 1980 in Macomb County, Michigan, a place nobody romanticizes. A guy named Ned Homfeld had a simple idea. Take working-class Midwesterners to Atlantic City and the Bahamas for cheap. Just simply get people somewhere they couldn't otherwise afford to go. He called it ground air transfer. Not exactly a name that screams billion-dollar airline, right? For over a decade, it stayed small. Then, in 1992, they rebranded as Spirit Airlines, started scheduled flights, and slowly expanded through the 90s. Florida, New York, the Caribbean. Nothing revolutionary. Just a scrappy regional carrier trying to survive in an industry that was already brutally competitive. The real turning point came in the mid-2000s. Spirit was bleeding money, losing tens of millions a year. And into that mess walked Ben Baldanza. Baldanza wasn't a visionary in the romantic sense. He was something more dangerous. A man who understood exactly one thing with absolute clarity. People lie about what they want. They say they want comfort, service, and experience. But when it comes to actually opening their wallet, they want cheap, every single time. So Baldanza made a bet. Stop pretending Spirit is something it's not. Lean into the cheapness, make it the product. Strip the ticket down to literally just a seat. No free bags, no free drinks, no free anything. You want to carry on? Pay for it. You want to pick your seat? Pay for it. You want to exist on this plane with a modicum of dignity? Well, that one's on us. In 2007, Spirit became the first true ultra-low-cost carrier in America. The model was simple. Charge almost nothing for the base ticket. Make the money back on every single thing around it. And it worked beautifully, in a way nobody expected. By 2010, Baldanza was ready to go further. Spirit became the first US airline to charge passengers for carry-on bags. Not checked bags. Carry-on bags. The thing you've been putting in the overhead bin for free your entire life. The public was furious. Congress dragged Baldanza in front of a House committee to explain himself. He sat there, completely unbothered, and told lawmakers that unbundling services gives customers choice and lowers their total cost. He wasn't wrong, and he didn't blink. Because here's what the outrage crowd missed. People complained about the fees on Monday, and then booked Spirit again on Tuesday because the ticket was $40 cheaper than everyone else. The math always won. And the math was extraordinary. By 2012, Spirit was posting a 12.6% operating margin. Delta, one of the most powerful airlines on the planet, was sitting at 6% during the same period. Spirit, the airline everyone made fun of, was twice as profitable per seat as the legacy giants. Wall Street started paying attention. What made the model genuinely brilliant was that fees weren't just extra revenue. They were behavioral tools. Charge more for bags at the gate than online, and passengers pack lighter in advance, which means faster boarding, faster turnaround, more flights per day, and lower fuel costs. Every single fee had a logic behind it. This wasn't nickel and diming. This was an engineering project disguised as an airline. By 2015, Spirit was growing at over 30% per year. They went public in 2011 on the New York Stock Exchange, and investors were happy. By 2016, more than 50% of Spirit's total revenue came not from tickets, but from ancillary fees, bags, seat selection, priority boarding, printing your boarding pass at the gate. Yes, that was a real charge. And here's the part that really stings in hindsight. Spirit didn't just succeed, they rewrote the entire industry. Delta launched Basic Economy in 2012, directly copying Spirit's playbook. American Airlines started charging for checked bags in 2008. United followed. The budget model that everyone laughed at became the template every major carrier quietly adopted while publicly pretending they were above it. Spirit had done to flying what McDonald's did to food. Stripped it to the bone, made it accessible to people who couldn't afford anything else, and built a machine that printed money while doing it. Wall Street loved them. Passengers kept coming back. The model felt bulletproof, but it wasn't. The first crack appeared in 2020. COVID grounded the airline industry, and Spirit, running on razor-thin margins with a model built entirely on volume, was immediately exposed. No passengers means no ticket revenue. No ticket revenue means no ancillary fees, and no slack in the system to absorb the shock. Legacy carriers had loyalty programs, cargo operations, credit card partnerships, corporate travel contracts, cushions. Spirit had a seat and a bag fee. That's it. But the deeper, more structural problem emerged when passengers came back after the pandemic. Because they didn't come back the same. Something had shifted. People who had spent 2 years at home rethinking everything came out the other side willing to spend more for a better experience. Premium travel exploded. Business class cabins were full. Delta and United were reporting record profits on the back of passengers who had decided that life was too short for a middle seat with no legroom, and a $45 surprise at the gate. Spirit's entire identity was built on the assumption that price would always be the #1 factor. Suddenly, for a significant slice of the market, it wasn't, and Spirit had nothing else to offer. Then came the competitor problem. Every legacy carrier now has a basic economy fare, a stripped-down, cheap option that looked a lot like Spirit, but came with a brand people actually trusted. A route map that actually went where people wanted to go. A loyalty program they'd been accumulating points in for a decade. Why fly Spirit when Delta would match the price, and at least you'd get your miles? Spirit's moat, the thing that protected them from competition, had been copied and improved upon by everyone with more resources. Their only remaining advantage was going even cheaper. But there's a floor. You can only strip so much before the plane stops working. Management could see the writing on the wall. They needed a lifeline. So, in 2022, they tried to find one. First came a proposed merger with Frontier Airlines, another budget carrier. The idea was simple: combine two struggling cheap carriers, cut costs, and compete more effectively. It fell apart. Then came the bigger play. JetBlue came knocking with a $3.8 billion offer to buy Spirit outright. For a company bleeding cash, this was a golden exit. Spirit said yes. They should have known it wouldn't be that simple. The Department of Justice was watching, and in January 2024, a federal judge in Massachusetts blocked the merger on antitrust grounds, ruling that combining JetBlue and Spirit would reduce low-price competition and hurt consumers. The irony was brutal. The airline that built its entire identity on being cheap was blocked from being saved because regulators were worried about keeping cheap flights available. By this point, Spirit had already lost more than $2.5 billion in total. In 2024 alone, they burned through another $1.2 billion. The JetBlue door had closed, and there was no plan C. November 2024. Spirit filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy for the first time. The plan was standard restructuring, negotiate with creditors, shed some debt, and emerge as a leaner operation. They announced they'd come out the other side as a smaller, more focused carrier. Fewer routes, lower costs, a fighting chance. It didn't work. The market had already moved on. The post-pandemic consumer who wanted cheap but not miserable had found other options. And Spirit's brand, built over 2 decades on the promise of the lowest price, period, now carries so much baggage, pun intended, that even the passengers who could only afford budget travel were choosing competitors. August 2025, Spirit filed for bankruptcy again, the second time in less than a year. At this point, even the most optimistic restructuring lawyer in the room has to admit this isn't a bump in the road anymore. This is the road ending. But Spirit refused to quit. In late February 2026, they struck a deal with creditors, a path to exit the second bankruptcy, a plan to emerge as an even smaller airline, lighter on debt, with a shot at survival. For about 72 hours, it looks like it might actually work. Then, the war in Iran started. Jet fuel costs roughly doubled in a matter of weeks. For an airline whose entire model depends on rock-bottom operating costs, doubling your single biggest expense isn't a setback, it's a death sentence. 2 weeks after announcing their creditor deal, Spirit was once again warning the world it might have to shut down entirely. And now, today, we have arrived at perhaps the most surreal chapter in this entire story. Spirit Airlines, the airline that spent 20 years telling Americans it was too cheap to fail, is sitting in Washington with its hat in its hand, asking the Trump administration for a $500 million bailout. The White House hasn't confirmed the deal. Kevin O'Leary went on television and said, with his characteristic lack of sympathy, that capitalism works because the losers go away. The Trump administration is simultaneously blaming the Biden administration for blocking the JetBlue merger and quietly exploring whether to keep Spirit alive anyway. The yellow planes are still flying, for now. But the whole thing feels less like a business and more like a patient on life support, while the family argues in the hallway about what to do next. When your only promise is the lowest price, you have no room for a single bad day. And in the airline business, bad days are the only kind there are. If you want to see how this ends, subscribe.